Get to know your district here on Morning Kickaround, part of our campaign to dot the map of American soccer. One of the remaining major metropolises of the United States, Cleveland, Ohio, without one of the last cities without a professional outdoor men's soccer team. And here from the existing amateur team from Cleveland FC is Baley Major. We're going to talk about the competing parties that are kind of moving in on Cleveland, the soccer district of Cleveland. But Baley, welcome to the show. Give us a lay of the land of what soccer is like in Cleveland as it is, and kind of who's trying to move in to the district with their professional soccer plans and organization.
So Northeast, like especially Northeast Ohio, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
First of all,
Gotcha.
okay. First of all, Northeast Ohio has a pretty strong soccer following. We follow Prem soccer and everything, and recently in the past 2 years, with first came MLS Next Pro and their push, but that was kind of put along with an NWSL bid. Unfortunately, they lost that, and now we're UPSL Pro. Or they're trying one of the professional women's leagues. They're working on building a stadium in downtown, and then just recently, there's a group led by a alumni of Cleveland State to then build a stadium, which is the current site of their indoor arena. Like the arena was built back in the 2000s, they want to tear it down and build a stadium. So there's currently two groups competing for pro soccer in Cleveland.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that is very interesting in American soccer. I mean, those of us who are veterans of this, Baley, we'll make jokes about soccer wars and all these things. And, we've got a couple of places in the country where there are multiple teams. We're going to see what happens in Dallas with a USL Championship team starting in a couple years when there's an MLS team there. But when it's two lower divisions going into a place like this, I guess the first question a lot of people would have is, can Cleveland support this kind of thing? If you say it's a soccer place, then why wouldn't we imagine a big city like Cleveland could support multiple teams in multiple leagues?
The problem is Cleveland has had teams in the past, and it's hard to get people out to support soccer unless it's like the professional level. Cleveland FC, we struggle to try and get people to attend. There's usually pretty good attendance at Gold Cup matches that we've hosted in the past, U.S. friendlies. So I would think it's just been a struggle recently, but I think the problem that you're going to get is people are going to gravitate. I think people will gravitate towards that USL name since it's professional. So it's people in their minds, they hear professional, they think, oh, that's going to be better soccer. Where if some of these people US Open Cup, it shows these professional teams don't always win, and it's not always the better soccer.
So as it stands, you are here. You work for NPSL side Cleveland SC. There's also a USL2 team, I believe, called Cleveland Force. And so you're saying that so there's already a little bit of a battle for in that summer amateur level of play. And you said it's been kind of a struggle to get audiences out to that. So how would that translate to the pro game if the summer teams are having a hard time?
I think it's just the level of financial support teams have, where we are just a group of people working together, working off sponsorship money. Force are kind of they're an academy club, so they have already that financial backing behind it. But I really think it's finances at this level of soccer, especially with Cleveland Pro having former pros like Justin Morrow behind them. And then I don't know who USL2 has behind them, but it's just going to take money in this region because we're dominated already by like three of the four major sports in the US. We have the Browns, we have the Guardians, we have the Cavs, and the owners of at least two of those teams are like the richest owners within those sports. So it's just going to take money and time in this region.
Yeah, that's so, when we're watching these clubs pop up in various places, Bailey, I do think there's a degree of difference here because of the way, because Cleveland is a major sports city, and what USL is doing in a lot of places is going into towns that really don't have any professional sports. I mean, we were just in Albuquerque. New Mexico United is the only professional sports team in New Mexico that is
Mhm.
quote unquote officially minor league, right? They are. We talked about this, whether lower league is minor league, but in the sense that they're not tied to another parent organization, they're not sending their players
Yes.
on. And they leaned into that. As you said, in Cleveland, there's the Browns. The Browns are going to eat up all the oxygen in the room. The Guardians are good, or can be good and can get. I just, that part of it is, does that make it too hard, or is it always worth going back to this? You talked about the history. I remember writing about the Cleveland Stars. That was a wild time.
Oh yeah, the Cleveland Stars, long old before my time of really following soccer, but they
That's what I mean.
only around
You're
for
actually a good example of somebody who doesn't have a memory of a failed team in Cleveland, and that was a
Mhm.
different era of lower division soccer in America. And whatever you want to make about the corporate money coming in on the USL side and the new investment from Bell Tower and what this is, and as we've written about it and talked about it, that there is just this push to go into every little town and work out a stadium deal and all that stuff. Cleveland seems different, but that it just is so wild that there's not something that can at least crack into that
Yeah.
soccer market. If I guess what you're saying maybe is, if it's not major league, then Cleveland sports fans will reject it.
That's kind of what I'm saying. That's my point with like MLS Next Pro versus this new USL team, which I'm thinking is going to be like either USL Championship or that new professional level they want to launch. And once they hear the word pro, I'm thinking I think they'll have the advantage when it comes to that, because we have minor league hockey and Cleveland fans support the Monsters okay, but again, they don't get that great of attendance, and unless they're in the playoffs.
One of the things when we spoke earlier, putting this together,
Mhm.
I thought was interesting is obviously there's already a soccer culture there. There's some amateur teams there, and then there's some outside money and efforts to put pro teams there. What are these separate parties, the USL bid and the MLS Next Pro group?
Mhm.
What are they doing to ingratiate themselves to the existing soccer community?
Yeah.
Um, the USL group hasn't really done much, but I think they've popped up more recently, so I'll see what they do. Um, the the Next Pro group, they've done a lot because they also want to start a women's pro team. They're kind of like going out in the community. They're working with a local women's owned sports bar, doing a lot of good stuff with them, and then have also started like an outdoor kick around tournament. Like they bring together best amateur teams in the region, and we play Brazilian basically style street soccer, which is probably like the coolest soccer event which has happened in Cleveland in years.
So
Just
that's
because it
interesting. So
Mhm.
MLS Next Pro Group is definitely like on the ground doing events, trying to
Yes.
like plant some seeds.
Right.
But you mentioned that they had one of these groups had even offered some operational assistance to you.
Yes. The next pro group, it's on the ground level, so I don't know how much they really want me saying. But what they want to do is to support either local men's amateur semi-pro level clubs like ours. There's other clubs like Ohio City, which are in like a local regional league, and other teams that want to pop up, or youth clubs that just need that extra little push, that don't have the help that they might as well need. And it's good to see. I want to get this going with them, and I think it could be what pushes them over, because they're really backing the local
Yeah.
community.
Well, that's the part of it that, and I think so. I'll bring in a comment from Soccer Night in Detroit.
Mhm.
Personally and logistically, I would rather see Cleveland get a USL club over MLS. I would love to see the Rust Belt Derby get renewed. And Rob, you've got a team popping up in your neck of the woods, right, in Michigan, that is going MLS Next Pro rather than USL. And again, in that sort of soccer wars mentality, people are going, well, why would you want to be part of MLS's thing and be Next Pro, which is professional, sure, but it's clearly, like NBA D League developmental kind of stuff. Like, why would you want to choose that path when you can be in a league like USL that is not, independent and has its own, sort of character to it? And I don't know, like it. But if the MLS Next Pro group is doing the work, Baley, then they may win hearts and minds, and that's probably more important than what league you play in.
And I really think that's going to be the case overall in Cleveland. Like initially in my mind, as we've been talking, it's the pro level thing. But I mean, my mind could be changed where, Next Pro is boots on the ground. USL has that pro name. But I mean, I'm excited to see what happens over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely interesting times in this developing landscape across the United States. But in Michigan, it was Detroit had a huge rivalry in the NPSL days against Grand Rapids. But Grand Rapids has come out as an MLS Next Pro team. But obviously, they're trying to be helpful. In the Cleveland area, the MLS Next Pro side. Are there any nearby MLS Next Pro teams that might garner some sort of a crosstown rivalry, or is there any sort of connections between teams in that division?
I think in Next Pro, our best rivalry will be like Crew 2, because if you look at like the landscape of the Next Pro teams that are just direct second teams, personally, I've interacted with them because I am a Crew supporter myself as well. They probably have the best like grassroots support of a Next Pro team that's not, an independent club. So I feel like they would actually be kind of a fun rivalry. It wouldn't be, get heated, as you would say, like if they played like, if the USL team plays Pittsburgh, because the historic Cleveland. That's my thought, is that I mean, even I think we even have had some good local rivalries which could pop up depending on how the support goes.
Yeah. A couple of things that are coming in from the chat, right? So Chris is saying, and I put this on the screen already, but I'll do it again. MLS Next Pro is monetarily so much of a less of an investment than USL. There's no promotion relegation, which we do expect to come to USL. There's so much less of a reason for an investor to invest in USL than MLS Next Pro. I don't know if there's any other factor that matters more than it takes more money to invest in USL. Like your franchise fee is higher in USL than it is in MLS Next Pro. I do think there's a question, and the problem that we have here, Rob, in this country is that these are independent businesses operating in their own best interests. They're not looking outside of their individual organization and going, well, we shouldn't do that because that would hurt soccer. They're only going to operate in their own best interests, right? Even USL doing what it's doing with all these new teams and Pro Rel and First Division is about what's in their best interest, growing their business, making more money. As fans, we have to interact with it on that level and be aware that this is not about like what's good for the game. So when the team in Cleveland ends up as a Next Pro team, or a Next Pro team ends up in Cleveland, and people go, well, I don't know if this is great, right? As Mike says, the farm team group of teams on the schedule is the biggest strike against MLS Next Pro independent teams. It's a tough sell. Is that something we should care about? Like is any team succeeding in Cleveland better than no team succeeding in Cleveland? I guess is the question. I don't know.
Ooh. Personally, I think Cleveland is due for some higher level soccer. And honestly, personally, like, I could say, this is how they'll succeed, but Cleveland fans, they'll do whatever they do. And I think honestly, over time, you'll see those Next Pro clubs that are rebranding their second teams, or they're gonna that. I think there are some teams out west, which I think Galaxy's second team is under a different name. If I'm mistaken, I think you'll see more of that. I don't know if I could be wrong though, but I think
no, not the Galaxy, but you got Seattle with Tacoma Defiance, and this is something interesting about this. The way MLS is now doing this with Next Pro, which I think they rethought their strategy around having a reserve league. Right, initially it was just, initially clubs had identities that were separate from their parent clubs. You had Bethlehem Steel, right, in Pennsylvania. You had, again, Tacoma Defiance was an example of this, or a couple of other teams that had separate identities. Swope Park Rangers for Sporting Kansas City, because they played at Swope Park, which is the training ground for Sporting Kansas City. Then the league was like, no, this is a reserve league. All of these teams need to have the same names as their parent clubs, and everybody became a 2 or a B or whatever. And now we're seeing sort of like a switch back to maybe this idea of, we want this league to stand on its own as a competition, and we want to bring in Cleveland where are the other independent teams in Next Pro right now? I'm having trouble.
Chattanooga and Carolina Core.
Carolina Core, right? Which is that project as well. And what are the ultimate end games for those clubs? Do they want to be independent clubs that sort of represent their communities in the same way an MLS team does? Because you choose a path based on maybe your ambitions here. But again, money is a factor. So I don't know. I think MLS is caught in between with this league, and I don't love it, but I get it from an investor perspective that, hey, it's easier to get a team launched in MLS Next Pro than it is in USL.
And I do have, before we part ways, I do have a question I'd like to put to you, Baley, because you are in a unique perspective, being someone in the soccer scene in Cleveland with Cleveland SC, and also being a Columbus Crew fan, which is a couple hours away. In the springtime, there was a Columbus Crew versus Inter Miami game in Cleveland. So someone with, in the soccer scene in Cleveland, but also a fan of Columbus, how did you feel about that whole arrangement of playing an MLS game in Cleveland?
We got to remember, soccer is a business at the end of the day. We may love our clubs, we may want to be a part of them as fans, but the owners are going to make decisions to make money. The Haslams own the Crew, and they own the Browns, and they had that opportunity to play the game in a bigger stadium, which, that was a business decision. But personally, from a fan perspective, even though I live closer to here, I don't think it was the right move fan-wise, because, people always then said, let's play at the Horseshoe, but the Horseshoe is too small for a regulation-sized field. They did play a friendly there this summer, but FIFA had to okay it in a sort of weird way. But I didn't like it. Money grab, didn't like it, because I'm more of that, fan first, but it's a business.
Yeah.
Cleveland in the crosshairs of this land war, or soccer war, if you will, here in the United States. Baley Major from NPSL side, Cleveland SC, thank you so much for joining us, giving a little bit of boots on the ground insight into the soccer scene, getting to know the district of Cleveland soccer. Thank you so much. If you've enjoyed this interview or others, be sure to become a member of the channel. Become an MK Ultra. We have, I think, 3 or 4 out of the 5 needed to do an extra little thing for the supporters.
Soccer Night in Detroit throw us $4.99 on the channel as well. So, major question: USL or MLS for Cleveland? I mean, again, we're talking about lower division stuff here. I think everybody could imagine Cleveland as a proper top division league city. Now, again, maybe there's going to be 2 first divisions in this country, Rob, in which case I'll let you pick your flavor. But, if you were just if you weren't looking at it too closely and you're like, okay, what's the biggest soccer league in America? That's MLS. Should Cleveland have an MLS team? Why has that not yet happened? That is certainly in the air, I think. It's for Cleveland, it's for Phoenix, which I think are the 2 biggest markets that don't have MLS teams. It's out there as a question. And in this country where everything is more complicated, and there's not really, you can't just launch a team and then gain entry to the top division through winning your way up, at least not yet. This is the thing we talk about.
Interesting times indeed. We shall see how it all plays out for the future of pro soccer in Cleveland.